Here's an interesting question. Given all the books out there, how do you know what to read? Or to rephrase that, how do you avoid the bad or mediocre books that just waste your time? Well, that is what we are going to try to answer in this video. Though I think we need a more fitting set first. Give me a second. All right, that's better. So I've gotten a lot of questions on this particular subject in the past, but I'm just gonna go ahead and read the most recent one for you. I desperately need a video about how to efficiently develop a reading list that saves you from stumbling upon bad books, which may put you off a whole genre. I'd also like to know how to read more books in more diverse categories and how to avoid abandoning the older items on my list for a random book that I just heard of. Now, I do wanna be a bit careful with this topic because when I think back to some of the best books I've ever read, they've been things that I just randomly picked off the library shelf or was given to by a friend, and I don't want you to avoid those serendipitous occasions. But given the absolute tirade of content that comes out of the publishing houses of the world and the internet, in the interest of helping you triage all the options out there, I want to give you some recommendations for how to find the best books in a particular genre and avoid wasting your times on the bad ones or the mediocre ones or the ones that are just kind of padded out for sales value, if nothing else. And the first thing we're going to talk about is one of my favorite websites in the world, which is Goodreads.com. I've been on Goodreads for quite a long time, and I found many of my favorite books in Goodreads recommendation lists, which I would highly recommend checking out. For instance, one of my favorite nonfiction books of all time, Bill Bryson's A Short History of Nearly Everything, was right near the top of one of Goodreads' best nonfiction of all time lists, and that's actually where I found it. And Goodreads is useful for other things besides just its list feature. If you do see a book on a shelf at Barnes & Noble or some bookstore or library and you're not sure whether or not to read it, the reviews on Goodreads can be highly detailed and can be very good ways to triage the books that you have on your list to figure out what you should prioritize. And a lot of authors actually have very active Goodreads profiles. In fact, Pat Rothfuss, who wrote The Name of the Wind, which is one of my top 5 fiction novels of all time, has an incredibly long review history, which I have perused many times in the past. And on one day, when I was just casually scrolling through it, I saw that he had written a 5-star review for a fiction book called The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making. So I picked this up, read it, and even though it's kind of a YA novel, I found it to be a really good read. So in short, Goodreads gives you an extensive database of lists of all different types of genres. I mean, I've found cyberpunk novels on their lists. I've found hacker history and crime history stuff in their lists. So whatever it is, you can probably find a list about it. It also has a huge user base, so there's lots of reviews for most books out there. And you can use the review histories of lots of your favorite authors who are active on the platform to find new books that they liked and which you may like as well. Now, another great way to figure out whether or not a book is worth your time is to read a summary of it. And there are actually several resources on the internet that you can go to find lots and lots of book summaries. And I'm going to give you a few recommendations here, starting with the free ones and then moving on to some that do cost money. So in the free category, I want to point you towards 2 different websites, which are each run by people that I have a lot of respect for and who I've been following for a long time. First and foremost, there is the website of Derek Sivers, who founded the company CD Baby, which if you have any music on Spotify, or you know anybody who is an independent artist and has their music on Spotify or Apple or iTunes, they probably went through CD Baby. They're kind of the OG in this industry. And since then, Derek has sold the company and spent a lot of his intervening time between now and then reading and reviewing and taking notes, really detailed notes actually, on a lot of books. So if you go over to his website, which is I believe sivers.org/books, you're gonna find a huge list of book reviews with lots of notes and summaries, which can be a very good way to figure out whether or not a book is actually worth picking up. And along the same lines, my friend Nat Ellison has another very long and very detailed book notes page on his website, which I'll have linked in the description below because I can't think of the URL right now. And that brings us over to the paid options, one of which is newbooksinbrief.com, which I believe is just run by one guy who reads books and then writes very detailed summaries of them. Now on that site, you can actually get access to the first part of each summary for free, and then afterwards I think it's about $3 per summary if you want to just buy them and get access to them. And another resource that I've used in the past is called Blinkist. Now in contrast to New Books in Brief, which operates on a pay-as-you-go basis, you basically buy each summary as you want it, Blinkist operates on a subscription model. So if you're the kind of person that wants to devour lots and lots of summaries, it can be a very good option for you. Now I do want to give you one word of warning when it comes to book summaries, because reading them is much like getting the notes from your friend instead of actually going to class. You're getting a second secondhand account of the source material. And that can be good for getting through that material quickly and seeing what at least somebody else believes is the most important points from that material, but you're not taking it in yourself. So there may be things that would have resonated better with you that are just omitted from their account. And that example of getting notes from a friend actually brings to mind one additional tip, which is to make friends who like to read lots and lots of books, from which you can get lots of recommendations. Earlier in the video, I mentioned the book The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, and the only reason I ever read that book is because a friend of mine basically shoved the book into my hands and told me that I had to read it. Now, usually when people recommend books to me, I think, well, my Goodreads list is already so long, I've already got so many books that I want to read before this, so I'm never going to get to it. But in that case, I read the book, I put everything else on the back burner, and I do not regret doing that at all. That book was amazing. And that brings me to something that this person mentioned in their question. They wanted to know how to avoid abandoning the older items on their to-be-read list, or the TBR if you're in the booktube circles, in favor of taking up random books that people just recommend to you in the moment or that catch your eye on the bookshelf. And quite honestly, I don't think this is a problem. Yeah, you probably want to get to the books on your TBR at some point. They're interesting, but just because they made it onto your list before a new book doesn't mean that they're going to have a greater impact on your life than a new book will. As we talked about on this channel a lot of times in the past, the greatest ingredient to learning is interest. So if something catches your eye and you're interested in it, don't shove that away because you think you need to get through something that was further down your list first. Follow your interest and let it guide you. In fact, while I'm thinking about it, Martin, you actually deleted your entire to-be-read list, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so there you go. Now, to round this video out, I do want to offer a few more pieces of advice from my own experience regarding reading books and having a lot of choices and all that kind of stuff. Number one, don't finish a bad book. Remember, the goal, if there is a goal to reading a book, is not to turn the final page and be able to say that you did it or to be able to check it off on your Goodreads profile. It's to get something useful out of the book or to enjoy reading it. You've probably seen all these people on the internet talking about how they read a book a day or a book a week and how it changed their life. But to be honest, the number of books you read is not a metric that's worth tracking. I mean, it can be fun, but it's what you get out of those books that really matters at the end of the day. So if you pick up a book and you start reading it and then halfway through you think, this is a waste of my time, then put it down. Don't finish bad books. Remember, your time is more valuable than what you paid for the book, if indeed you paid for it at all. But as a caveat to that tip, don't be overly concerned with reading the best quote unquote books out there, because the best books are just the books that other people say are the best. And like we said before, you may gain something out of a book that nobody else is going to see because you have your own unique life experience and your own unique goals. And furthermore, even if a particular book doesn't make it onto your favorites list or doesn't change your life immediately, it may send you down a path that leads you to other resources which do. For example, one of the books that I'm going to talk about in next week's video about books that changed my life is one called Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality, which is, at the end of the day, kind of a silly fan fiction that basically writes the first Harry Potter book if Harry Potter was a boy genius. And I really enjoyed that book, but I wouldn't say that book in particular changed my life. But what it did do is get me interested in rationality and heuristics and biases, and that book led me to reading a book called Thinking Fast and Slow, which did change my life. And last but not least, don't forget to enjoy the process of reading. One of the top lessons I've learned in life is that you never really get there. Whenever you get to a milestone, there's just another milestone waiting at the top of the next hill that you can see. So enjoy what you read. Don't worry about having read all the best books out there, because you're gonna want to enjoy the actual process. And on that note of enjoying what you read, one of the things that I am greatly enjoying right now is the complete collection of Sherlock Holmes stories. Though it is slightly inaccurate for me to say that I'm enjoying reading them, because I'm actually listening to them on Audible. Now, you know the deal with these Audible spots. I recommend a book that I'm enjoying to you every single time I do one, but with the Sherlock Holmes stories, I do have to get a little bit specific, because since Sherlock Holmes is so famous, many narrators have tackled the task of reading his stories, and you can find many different collections on Audible. For example, there's a collection by Simon Vance, which is very good. There are collections by a narrator named David Timson, which is very good. But for my money, the one that you want to get is the one that is read by none other than the great Stephen Fry. Not only is his voice absolutely fantastic, but this collection of stories is over 60 hours long and it's only 1 credit. So for my money, it is one of the best deals that exists on Audible, and I am really enjoying it. And what's better, if you're not already an Audible customer, you can go over to audible.com/Thomas or text Thomas to 500-500 on your phone to get a free trial of their service and a free audiobook download, whether it's Sherlock Holmes, like I'm recommending for you right now, or anything else of your choosing. And when it comes to choosing, you're gonna have a ton of selection because Audible has an unmatched library of titles across a ton of different genres, ranging from all the bestsellers to lots of really obscure stuff. So whatever is on your to be read list, if you have not deleted it like Martin has, you're probably gonna be able to find it. So once again, if you wanna get started with Audible and start listening to audiobooks, which can be a great way to make your downtime more efficient, the time on the bus, time spent driving, time spent folding the laundry, all that kind of stuff, then head on over to audible.com/Thomas, or once again, text Thomas to 500 on your phone. Big thanks to Audible for sponsoring this video and being a huge supporter of this channel. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like to support this channel, and you might also want to click right there to subscribe so you don't miss out on new videos when they come out. You can also click right over there to get a free copy of my book on how to earn better grades, or go right over here to listen to our latest podcast episode. Last but not least, click right here to watch one more video on this channel, and I will see you in next week's video on 5 books that changed my life.